For this video is going to be a little bit different. Now, I am going to talk about situations taking place in Iran right now. I mean, I think yesterday, I think it began. But we are going to talk about it though. But for this first video of the morning, I want to talk about the idea of white privilege. Now, there's an older video where I talk about white privilege in general, but it's 2020. I'm pretty sure this concept isn't going to die down. And if Trump does win in 2020, which I highly think he will, we're going to hear this a lot more often now. But a lot of people think, well, white privilege, Carlos, are you a charlatan? No, like, no. I just look at the concept of white privilege. And if you look at the subtitle, in the sense that if you're watching the video or you're listening, I'll read the subtitle to you. It says, White Privilege, How a Made-Up Concept Ends Up Hurting Minorities in America. Now, based on that, it's kind of hinting you on what I think about white privilege. And personally, I don't like that idea in general. Because to some degree, personally, I think this actually ends up hurting all the minorities in the world, and not just the world specifically, but in the country. Because how many times if you go to college, you will hear about white privilege every single day. Especially when you have professors who are left-leaning lunatics who just want to spout out problems and blame it on racism, and then they say we aren't able to succeed because only white people in America can succeed, and that's a very racist statement to begin with. But first, let's go into what is white privilege. Well, white privilege is a societal privilege that benefits white people or non-white people, particularly if they are otherwise under the same social, political, and economic circumstances. Now, I don't believe this, but I do believe that everyone is born with a certain amount of privilege. I just don't think it's based on a matter of race. But also the reason why I don't believe in the idea of white privilege in general is because you can be rich and you can still end up poor. For example, when my sister got a new job, I think like in her first year, she used to work at the first McDonald's that I work at. She used to work with me there. And when she quit, she said, haha, I got a new job and I'm making much more money than you. And you know what I ended up telling her? I told her, that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, I'm going to end up having more money than you. Why? Because unlike her, so I at least know how to spend my money accordingly. I do not spend outside of my limits. If I make $2,000 a month, which I do now after I got my raise, but if I make $2,000 a month, I'm not gonna spend more than that. I'm not. If my budget is $2,000 every single paycheck, sorry, is it? No wait, yeah, $2,000 a month, yeah. So if it's $1,000 every paycheck, I'm not gonna exceed my paycheck. I'm not gonna go beyond it. Why? Because I'm smart with my money. I do not want to go into debt. Debt sucks. The only thing that I have right now are student loans, and that's it. That's like $500 in debt plus the car. But even then, the car isn't a problem to pay off. But again, everyone can be rich and they can go up and go down the drain and end up being poor. Right? That's the thing. That's the thing about privilege. You can be born with the best things, but if you do not know how to use those things to your advantage, then you're gonna end up losing. You're gonna end up losing everything you have. Life is hard, so it's up to you how you will handle it. People of all races are given bad circumstances. Single parent households, low income homes, no parents, homelessness. Every single person, regardless of race, can fall into one of these categories. Or then multiple categories. It can be a lot worse things going on. But does that mean that it's only white people that are benefiting from that are not affected by any of this? No. I've known poor white people before. Even in elementary school, I had a friend by the name of Dennis, and he was actually really poor. Like he was actually around my level of poor. Right? We were poor when we grew up, but even then, that made me wonder: how is it that this guy is poor and I'm told that white people are rich? Well, the thing is that it was all a lie. It really was. But it doesn't mean that everyone is bound to fall into all of these things. And again, people of all races. So when I hear Bernie Sanders telling us about how white people don't know what it's like to be poor, I get mad because I knew people who were white, who I grew up with, and I became friends with during that time when I lived there. We were friends, and they were poor. So when I hear that, I'm thinking, you know what, dude, stop it, because you know you're lying. But before we even talk about this subject, we're going to talk about the idea of Rocky Balboa. And I know you're like, Carlos says we've already seen this in the other video. I know. But I think that there's something that a lot of people need to start noticing and need to start listening to. Because Rocky, well, it might be obviously, a film about a boxer, or in this case, a retired boxer. What he says in this video is something that a lot of people need to hear. Because we tend to hear about nowadays that when someone fails or we fail, we always blame it on someone else, or we blame it on racism, blame it on whatever, and that's how we don't improve. So let's watch the video for a bit, and I'll remain quiet for the rest of it. That way you guys can hear properly.
How you doing? Glad you come by.
Can I talk with you?
Sure.
Can you do it outside? you're going through with this.
Yeah, I start training tomorrow.
Hey, Rob, I made some connections. I can make some money on this endorsements.
Absolutely, do that.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure.
Okay.
So you nervous about the fight?
They're scared to death.
You don't look scared?
Well, you ain't supposed to.
Then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, well, I think I do.
You know, living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, this is gonna be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
Oh, what, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself, and this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor not to go through with this, okay? This is only gonna end up bad for you, and it's gonna end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke and that I'm gonna be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
You ain't gonna believe this. But you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life.
So, if you're able to hear that, he talks about a lot of good points, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later. But for this next slide, we're going to talk about how the current generation tends to be better off than their predecessors. It's not a general thing that shouldn't be generalized. But, we've come a long way as humans. We've come a long way. We no longer go out and hunt our food. We actually just go to the supermarket and go pick it up and purchase it, right? Back in the day, our ancestors used to gather spears, and they would go out for like days hunting animals so they can bring back food. But now we just have to go, if you're like a mile or two, go to the supermarket, get the food, and come back home. We're better off, even though we like to say, "Oh, we're worse than ever." No, we are. We are better off. We've come a long way. Well, in America, yeah, sure, we did have slavery, but we don't have it now. And yet and then we hear a lot about these individuals who say that, oh, black people are still being oppressed. But how? Last time I checked, they're not getting whipped. Last time I checked, they're not working for free. In this case, they're not being forced to work. They're not on plantations anymore, right? So a lot of people like to say, oh, minorities are a lot worse off than they were 50 years ago. I was like, I'm sorry, but I think I'm way better off as a minority compared to 50 years ago. Because last time I checked, 50 years ago, we were a lot worse off. But now guess what? I can open a bank account. I can get a car if I have the money for it, right? No one's going to deny me anything, and based on race, of course. If I go to work, or if I try to apply to a job, they're going to tell me, we don't hire Mexicans here. No, I don't hear that. You know what? You know what happens? Why I don't get hired in many cases when I was looking for a job. I didn't get hired because I was Mexican. I didn't get hired because probably I wasn't good enough compared to other candidates. That's why I never got hired. But you know what I did? I ended up telling myself, I need to get better. I need to find ways to get, I need to find ways to get to increase my chances of getting a job, right? I didn't blame it. Oh, it's because the store owner's racist or the manager's racist. No, it was never anything like that. But a lot of people do react that way, and I think that's bad. While my parents worked long hours in fields making next to nothing, and they did, I, on the other hand, work 36 hours a week and make literally almost $2,000 a month. Sorry, 1,900 to be more precise. But let's go back to Rocky and his son. Now, Rocky, if you're not aware, if you've never seen any of the Rocky movies, spoiler alert, but even then, they came out like literally almost like 40 years ago. I think it's like the first one came out in the 70s. Right? But the point is, if you haven't seen them, well, get ready because you're gonna hear me tell you about a lot of crucial parts of the story of the Rocky franchise. So Rocky, in this case, he had a much tougher life compared to his son. Rocky grew up in poverty. He worked as a debt collector for a loan shark. He didn't graduate high school, despite being a professional boxer and later becoming wealthy because that's how he became rich through boxing. And he actually did eventually end up losing his wealth in Rocky 5. But despite that, that took a physical and mental that took a toll on his physical and mental health. Like if you see Rocky 5, it turns out that when he fought Ivan Drago in the previous film, he got like serious brain damage. It was insane. Yeah, he was rich, but at what cost? He got bruised, he got his nose broken, he got a lot of injuries. Yeah, and yeah, he was rich, but that's probably not a good way to live a life, especially if you're an athlete. At the same time, too, he lost his manager, Mickey, who died in Rocky 3. His friend and rival Apollo Creed died in Rocky 4. And his wife died of cancer before Rocky 6. Between Rocky 5 and Rocky 6, she died of cancer. Despite all that, Rocky never gives up on himself, and he always overcomes his obstacles. That's a harsh life, and that's the thing. That's why I like Rocky more than anything when it comes to these characters, because Rocky, he grew up in the worst circumstances possible, in the sense of living in a developed country. But he was never bitter. He was never cranky. He was very humble. Meanwhile, his son Rocky Jr. had a much better life than his dad. During his early years of the childhood, he was wealthy. Rocky never grew up under a big mansion, right? He did very well in school, unlike his father. While he spent the rest of his childhood growing up in poverty, obviously when they lost their wealth in Rocky 5, he never had to become a boxer to make a living and become successful. In fact, at the age of 29, 1 year, one year, he was actually more successful than his father. 1 year, because in Rocky 1, he was actually 30 years old. And at 30 years old, Rocky was still poor. But at 29 years old, he's actually more successful than his father. He works as an accountant and he makes a lot of money, and yet he isn't happy at all. Why? Because he believes the reason why he is successful is because he's Rocky Balboa's son. He blames everything that goes on around him on his father, and that's why he's not happy. And when you think about it, why would Rocky Jr. be upset? The guy literally has a much better life than his father. But why? He blames it on someone else. He decides to look at his dad and say, "I only have this because of you," when in reality, he's probably a lot more capable than what he is. He was good in school. He never flunked any classes. He had all of it. He had a lot of merit. But he never thought that he earned those things. When in reality, he probably did, and I'm pretty sure he did. Your shortcomings in the world is not because the world is racist, okay? Today, the younger generations are always being told that the world is racist. Every problem is because of racism, and I think that's probably one of the worst things you can tell us, especially me as a minority. And in this case, if people who believe that the world is out to get them, the world is racist, they will view the following things as racism. You failed your math test. Oh, it's because of racism. The teacher was racist, or math is racist. You lost your job. Oh, because my boss is racist. Your crush rejected you. Oh, because they're racist. Every problem you have is racism, and that's bad, and it's hurting minorities. Why? Because you can improve your life. You can improve your circumstances if you believe every single bad thing that happens in your life is not your fault. When in reality, it probably is. In order to improve your life, you have to improve yourself. A person who takes responsibility for their shortcomings have a different way in how they view the world. That's how I view it. You failed your math test. You need to study more for the exam. Or in this case, you probably didn't study enough. That's how I view it. That's how people should view it, but they don't. Why? Because they're told that everything is racist, and that therefore, if something else is to blame, they don't have a reason to improve, because we're talking about circumstances that are out of their control. In reality, they are in their control. You probably failed your math test because you didn't study enough. That's why. You lost your job, well, maybe because you weren't good enough, or maybe because you had a bad work ethic, not because of racism. Your crush rejected you. Well, maybe they have a crush on someone else, or they're in a relationship. It's not because they're racist. And in fact, there's a lot of people out there. There's a the world has like 7.1 billion, has like a 7 billion population. You mean to tell me that because one person out of 7 billion rejected you, the world is over now and the world is racist? No, right? Every problem that you have, it falls on you to solve it. It's not because of racism. It's not because of sexism. It's not because of any of these things. You are responsible for your problems, and if you don't acknowledge that you're at fault, you're never going to improve. And that's the problem that I have with white privilege. You're blaming all your problems on something else, something that's fictional. Therefore, you have no motive to improve because it's not your fault, or at least that's what you think. If white privilege does exist, and that's a big if, by the way, these people wouldn't be where they are. Barack Obama wouldn't have been elected president. I mean, seriously, we're talking about the first black president in history of the United States, and yet for some reason we're supposed to believe that white privilege does exist. I'm sorry, but if white privilege did exist, Barack Obama would have lost to John McCain in 2008. Oprah Winfrey, she wouldn't be on television. She wouldn't be where she is. She wouldn't be rich. And then you mean to tell me that white privilege is real? I'm sorry, but no, I don't buy it. Michael Jordan wouldn't have been accepted into the NBA and become one of the most successful and one of the best players in NBA history. And you mean to tell me that white privilege is real? I'm sorry, but I don't believe that. Will Smith wouldn't have been one of the most recognized and respected actors in Hollywood. If white privilege did exist, there would be no Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. There would have been no Men in Black 1, 2, and 3. There would have been no remix of Aladdin. There would have been no iRobot. Will Smith wouldn't have made it as far as he did. And I'm supposed to believe white privilege exists. James Brown, a very famous musician, wouldn't have been successful in the music industry. You know the song that I Feel Good? Yeah, that was James Brown. He revolutionized the way music is. He revolutionized the music industry. And you expect me to believe that white privilege is real? I'm sorry, but I don't believe it. And Eddie Murphy, if you've ever heard of Eddie Murphy, for younger generations probably didn't know his career as a comedian, but he actually voices Donkey in the Shrek movies, which actually does a good job. But the point is, if white privilege did exist, Eddie Murphy wouldn't have succeeded as a comedian. So white privilege is real, then I have proof that it's not real. These people wouldn't have been where they are. They wouldn't be where they are today if white privilege did exist. So why are we being told about white privilege? Why are we always told about this on college campuses and celebrities telling us about white privilege is bad and all this and that? I'll tell you why. They want to keep minorities dependent and weak. The world is racist, therefore we need bigger government. And in reality, those who claim to defend us from racism are the true racists. They're usually leftists. Leftists believe minorities cannot get out of poverty on their own, therefore they need welfare programs. Yeah, apparently we can't get out of poverty ourselves. Last time I checked, let's see, me and my parents got out of poverty. Oh wait, that's right, without the government's help. You mean to tell me we're not able to do that, therefore we need to get the government for help? I'm sorry, but that's insulting. Leftists love minorities, but the ones who do not agree with their way, they hate those. Yeah, they hate the ones that don't agree like they do. They hate people like me. Whenever I walk out with my Trump 2020 hat or my Keep America Great hat in public, they give me some disgusting face like, oh, I can't believe you don't think like we want you to think. Oh, I'm just like, I've even been called a race traitor by my own race apparently. So apparently that's bad. They love me if I think like them, but other than that, if you're a black person, they call you an Uncle Tom. Otherwise, they'll call you a sellout. Oh, you're a sellout. How could you sell out your people? I'm sorry, but last time I checked, I was born here. I'm an American. I actually prefer living here than in Mexico, and I've gone to Mexico. You know what I mean? But they love minorities. They love you. But if you think different than what they want you to think, then they'll hate you for it. Leftists believe voter ID policies are racist towards minorities, but how racist do you have to be to believe minorities are incapable of getting an ID? Something that you need for almost every aspect of your life. Think, oh, voter ID is racist. I'm sorry, but last time I checked, you need an ID to get a job. You need an ID to open a bank account, to buy a house, to buy a gun, right? To purchase alcohol. You mean to tell me you can't get an ID? You mean to tell me that you think that I can't get an ID? I even have an ID. My parents have an ID. My sister and my sister even has her own ID. We're a minority. So how is that racist? I don't know. But white privilege, I think it's a huge lie. I really do think it is, because they just want us to keep us weak. We can't improve ourselves unless we start realizing, hey, maybe the world isn't out to get me. Maybe all the bad things that are happening to me are because of my doing. Maybe I failed at math test because I didn't study enough. Not because the professor or the test was racist, or not because the concept of math is racist. Oh, I got fired. Maybe because I wasn't good enough, or maybe because I don't know, I didn't have the proper work ethic. Not because the employer was racist, but that's what they want us to think. If we can't improve on ourselves unless we start realizing, hey, maybe we are at fault for our shortcomings. But that's not what they want us to think. If you like this video, hit the like button. That really does help out a lot. Subscribe, hit the notification button as well. Share the video if you want people to hear about this, because I really think that, you know, this is one of the topics that we need to start talking about, especially when it comes to minorities speaking out against white privilege, because I think it's just a bunch of a huge lie to keep us weak and dependent. And like I said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Share the video. I already said that, but again, I emphasize this one because I think a lot of people might benefit from this. But again, share the video, comment on, and leave me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.